It is Arsenal against Bayern, Atletico against Dortmund, Real against Manchester City, and PSG against Barcelona. Let's start with the 2 draws for the English clubs, and let's start with Bayern Munich, because you are the most Germanic person I know who isn't from Germany.
Yeah.
So Bayern Munich are not going to be happy about this draw, are they?
No, I don't think they will. I think they'll be concerned because they'll have seen what Arsenal have done in the Premier League this season. They'll have seen the way that Arsenal managed to find a way against Porto. I think that was hugely important because that's the kind of really awkward tie that you have to come through if you're going to win a tournament like this. And Bayern, for all of the attacking quality they have, and they do, they've got the best attack in Germany. You know, they've scored more goals than Bayer Leverkusen.
And he's having a great season, Harry Kane. He's going to break all sorts of records.
Yeah, so at the weekend I commentated on an 8-1 win over Mainz, in which, weirdly, Bayern weren't that great at times. But he's scored yet another hat-trick. He's the first ever player to score 4 hat-tricks in his first Bundesliga season. And he's 1 goal away from marking the best ever debut season in terms of goals by a Bundesliga player who'll go past Uwe Seeler. So he's done his bit. The issue has been the structure of the team. You know, they've got individual quality. We know that Leroy Sané's had a decent season. I'm going to say Sané, not Sane. He's been great.
I was going to translate for our English audience.
Yes. But he's just slowed down a little bit because he's been carrying a knee injury. So that's been a real problem. Matisse Tell's great. Young guy's just signed a new contract. He was linked with Manchester United. Jamal Musiala's the one who can really change a game because he's really come into some form in the last few weeks. The issue is defensively. They asked the centre-backs to do a hell of a lot, cover a lot of grounds. Diop and Meccano's been in and out of the team with injury of late and has had some poor form, having started the season well. Min-Jae Kim, who was brilliant for Napoli last season, played really well for most of the season, but Thomas Tuchel's been dropping him for games recently in favour of Eric Dyer, saying that he thinks that Kim's too tired. He's been playing the Asian Cup, of course, recently for South Korea. So there are issues there. I don't think Manuel Neuer is as commanding as he normally is. He was out for nearly a year with that really serious leg injury that he picked up ski touring.
He's got some sleepless nights on the way as well because his girlfriend's just given birth to their first child.
Yeah, so that's not going to be easy. So you add the lack of sleep and
the skiing injury.
Yeah, the skiing injury and the fact that they're conceding goals. They don't look like a team that's going to keep clean sheets. So if they're going to get past Arsenal, it's going to be that firepower. It's going to be that individual quality because in terms of the system, there are big gaps there for me.
It's going to be a fascinating battle, isn't it, between that Bayern attack and the Arsenal defence because I think Gabriel and Saliba are probably the best centre-back pairing in the Premier League at this moment in time. But based on what you were saying there about Bayern not being the Bayern of old, is this more about Arsenal and their approach? Because I watched both games against Porto. They were really passive in the away game. I didn't think they were great in the home leg either. I think they made hard work of that. And it just feels to me, Martin, there's still a black spot when it comes to Arsenal and European trophies. They've only ever won 2 in their history.
There's a black spot about your opinion of Arsenal.
No, but they've only ever won 2 European trophies. I mean, the teams you played in...
There's a lot of clubs who haven't won any.
Yeah, but the teams you played in should have won a European trophy.
Of course, we can't. We have to...
They've only been to one Champions League final.
No, but I feel like it's still a bit of a hangover. What's that got to do with the current team? The current team have had no European experience whatsoever. They've not even been involved at all in European competition, most of them, really, have they? I mean, apart from the Europa League last year. I mean, it's a completely different group. Surely that cleanses the mindset, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think that there's a freshness about Arsenal right now. And I think actually they learn a little bit against Porto because their manager, has he got 50 games experience in the Champions League? Arteta, only 8 games. So he's learning, he's cutting his teeth. I think the team learned very well. They were passive, yes, in that first game, and they were afforded a lot of possession. I thought they struggled when suddenly Porto changed the tactics and really pressed Arsenal quite high. That was a bit of a shock to them. Didn't create what they wanted, but they found a way through it. And that's what it's about. It's about learning. I think this team's learning very well. I think they just enjoy the moment. The thing is that Arsenal are really competitive. We've got our Arsenal back again now. When you're there, they're at boiling point, the team. They're in every fight. And they're fighting for the Premier League title. They're fighting for the Champions League. I think it's a good time to be an Arsenal fan right now.
And if you go back in history, it took Manchester United a few seasons to get into that groove of being able to fight in Europe and still maintain a challenge in the Premier League. So I think it's something that you pick up as you go along. Talk to me about the Manchester City Real Madrid tie, because last year, obviously, we know it ended up being an incredibly one-sided semi-final in the end. I mean, the first leg was 1-1, the second leg an absolute annihilation.
The problem here for Real Madrid is all the injuries they've had. because Thibaut Courtois has been out with this ACL for a long, long time. There's talk of him, being on the way back, but what shape would he be in? Eder Militao's been out for a long time. David Alaba's been out as well. So key defensive personnel that have been out. And I think if you look at that tie against RB Leipzig made so many chances over the two legs, made loads of chances in the first leg. We're a bit unlucky to have a goal ruled out for offside. I thought that was a bit of a tight call, actually. And they didn't look defensively solid, but they have the firepower to get them out of sticky situations. And, time and time again, it's these intangibles with Real Madrid. It's that institutional knowledge of, it's exactly what Martin was just talking about in a way, actually. Arsenal are learning. They're on the start of that journey in many ways with this group. Real Madrid have so much experience and they don't panic. So even if it's going against them and they're giving up chances, they don't panic. Bellingham's obviously been sensational since he's got there. They've got Rodrigo, they've got Vinicius. So a little bit like Bayern, they've got that firepower that can get them out of tough situations. But it's whether Manchester City's structure and their depth is going to be too much for them. So I think City are favourites, but obviously you can never take Real Madrid lightly in the Champions League.
Is it a shame in some ways the way the draws seem slanted, because you have got the best four teams all in the same half of the draw? I mean, it's great news if you're PSG or Barcelona, but it does mean maybe we won't get the final that perhaps the competition deserves.
I quite like the way it's fallen in a way, because I think we're going to get, obviously you'd like an all-star final, but I quite like the fact that they're going to have to all slug it out to get there in the first place.
You could end up with Real Madrid against Barcelona in the final.
The other side of the draw is fascinating now, because you look at it, Paris are not perfect, but they have Kylian Mbappe. They have a structure now. I've said all the way through this competition, not necessarily that Paris will win it, but they are better set up to win it, I think, than they have ever been. Because, yes, Messi's gone. Yes, Neymar's gone. But they actually have a structure. They have players who are willing to work without the ball. Mbappe's not necessarily one of those. But they have a lot of players in there who are willing to do the work that Luis Enrique demands. So, therefore, they've got more of a chance of getting through. Barcelona are really hit and miss. Lots of key injuries. Dortmund, you never know what you're going to get, but they've done really well in this competition. And Atletico, as I mentioned, fantastic at home. Away from home, awful at times.
03717 223344. Just a recap of that draw. Arsenal against Bayern Munich. They lost 10-2 the last time they played them. Harry Kane's 14 goals in 19 against Arsenal. Atletico Madrid against Borussia Dortmund. Real Madrid against Manchester City. 9 different players have played for both those two clubs, and there was one hell of a shellacking the last time they met in the semi-finals of the Cup. PSG against Barcelona as well. That's the quarterfinals of the Champions League.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the TalkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. TalkSPORT.